Chapter HD Ideas for Park Owners. Here's an idea for some of you that may own a mobile home park or can buy or develop one. Instead of renting your lots to mobile home owners, find some nice used homes and set them up on your vacant lots. Then sell the home like I've been telling you about. Sell for whatever down payment you're willing to take and work out affordable monthly payments for the balance. Then rent the lot to your buyer. This way you have the payment from the mobile home without any management headaches, and you get the rent payment on the dirt. And you make a profit on the sale of the home, plus the financing charges. Instead of letting the banks profit from the financing, the money will go in your pocket. I think this is the ideal way to operate a park. Not only will you get a payment from the home and a payment from the lot, but you don't have someone calling you about a problem they might have with the home like you do when renting. No management problems, and you have complete control. If you have a problem getting your rent payments, or wind up with a bad tenant, evict them and sell the home again. Of course, if you don't mind being a landlord, you could rent the home and make an excellent return on your money. But that means the usual landlord problems, trouble calls when something goes wrong, plumbing problems, leaking roof, and that's what I want to get away from. Sado hashtodo haft renting vs selling. Let's do some comparisons between selling the mobile home and renting it, and see which you prefer. Suppose you buy a home for 2,000 ponsat and spend another ponsat for advertising, minor repairs, or whatever. So you now have 6,000 in this home. You sell the home for 5,000 with a ponsat down payment, and agree to finance 4,000 ponsat. You carry a note for 4,000 ponsat, payable sado haftado و 4 ممیز 37 صدم a month, 3 months at 12% interest. Suppose we receive 12 payments in the year of sale, and the interest portion of the payments amount to 451. When you figure your taxes on the sale, you would have a 2,000 profit, plus the 451 interest, for a total taxable amount of 2,471. If you are in below 8% tax bracket, your taxes on that mobile home in the year of sale would be 6,900. Now, suppose instead of selling, you decide to rent the home for 2,000 per month. If you receive 12 months rent that year, your rental income would be 2,400. You would have to pay insurance and taxes which might amount to 250 a year, which you can deduct. You could also take depreciation on the home, but that has to be spread over 250 years, which would only amount to about sat. So you have a total deduction of 650 if nothing else was spent on the home. Deducting the 650 from the gross rents leaves you 2,050 taxable income. Using the same 8% tax bracket, you would be paying 5,774 in taxes instead of 6,900, a difference of 4. So it could be more profitable to rent, rather than selling, providing you don't mind being a landlord. If you rented out a number of the homes, instead of selling, it could make a stable difference in your tax bill, and of course, you could keep renting that home indefinitely or until you got tired of being a landlord. Sado hashtado hashed, but keep in mind that if and when you do decide to sell the home, you would have a lower basis in the home, or maybe no basis at all. If you had no basis when you sold, that means whatever you sold it for would be taxable. By renting, you could choose when to sell and thereby have some control when you pay the taxes on the home. If your tax situation favored selling this year and paying the tax, you could do that. If next year proved to a better year to sell and pay taxes, wait until next year to sell. You might want to give some thought to renting some and selling some. Before you do, check with your tax accountant as to IRS rules on being a dealer and being an investor. It might be some question that if the same person does both, even if it is in two different entities, the IRS might consider you one and the same even though you are renting some and selling some. They might say that everything falls under the dealer category. Lease with option. Consider this idea. If you don't want to sell and have to pay all the tax in the year of sale, and still don't want the problems that go with renting, do a lease with option to purchase. For instance, suppose you offer to rent that home for 2,000 pounds per month for 6 months. Your tenant buyer puts up ponsat for the option consideration and agrees to pay 2,000 pounds a month for 6 months. At the end of the 6 months they can buy the home for ponsat. When you lease option the home, have your tenant buyer agree to take care of any repairs and maintenance that may be needed during the 6-month option period. If they are unable to pay for repairs when needed, then you, as the landlord, would be obligated to make the repairs. But you will then be able to add the cost of those repairs to the ponsat by a payment if they exercise their option. This way, you not sado hashtodo and will only limit your expenses, but hopefully you will cut down on trouble calls from your tenant buyer. Suppose the water heater goes bad. Your tenant buyer would be obligated to replace it, not you. If they don't exercise their option and buy the home, you have a new heater and the chance to lease option to another party. If they do move, you might say they bought that home while they were there, they just don't get the title. As mentioned before, we've never sold a mobile home on a lease option agreement, but we have sold a number of our houses this way, and it's worked out very well. I especially like the part where I can add any expenses that I might occur during the lease option period to the sales price. This really cuts down on the complaints from the tenant buyer wanting you to make some kind of repair. If they call with a problem, I explain that I can have the problem taken care of, but I remind them that the cost will be added to the price of the house. Then I try to show them how they could probably have the problem corrected cheaper than I could. Especially if they were able to do the work themselves, because they would have to hire an expensive repairman to take care of it unless it's a big problem, like a water heater or such, they will usually take care of the problem. If you lease option, you would need to carry proper insurance on the home, and be responsible for paying the personal property tax. So make your payments more for a lease option than you would for a sale in order to cover these extra expenses. Sado navat lease several lots. Here's an idea you might want to consider. Contact a park owner that has a number of vacant lots. This might be a park that's poorly managed, or maybe a burned-out landlord that just doesn't manage the park like it should be. At any rate, the park isn't producing the income it should be producing. Offer to lease several lots at a reduced price. Then place a mobile home on the lot, sell the home, or rent if you choose. You receive the payment from the home, plus the difference in the lot rent you pay to the park owner, and the lot rent you collect from your tenant buyer. You could probably increase the lot rent each year for an additional profit. For instance, suppose the lot rent in this park is $285, that's the average rent in my area. What if you offered to lease 6 of the lots for $285 a month each, providing the owner would give you a 3-year lease, and the right to lease those lots? Knowing they would receive $285 per lot for 3 years, and not have to worry about finding a renter when one comes vacant, might sound very good to them. They might wind up with more money doing this than they've been getting from a badly managed park. You then buy 6 of the little, al cheapo homes like we've been talking about, and place them on the lots. You sell the homes and set up financing for 3 years. You rent your buyer the lot for $285. You are then receiving payments on the homes, plus the panjo difference between the lot rent you pay and the lot rent you receive from your tenant buyer. And you should be able to increase your rent dapons dahi each year for an additional profit. You should also try to negotiate your lease agreement so that you have the right to extend the option period for an additional 3 years or longer. Or, if possible, work out a sado navado yik lease purchase agreement that would enable you to buy the park at some future date. You might even consider finding a small park and offering to lease the whole park. Somewhere out there you can bet there's a park owner that would love to be relieved of all the headaches and worry of managing a park, yet still wants to maintain ownership of the park. If you could find such an owner, there's a good chance they would rather receive less income, if that income was guaranteed with a monthly check, and they didn't have to worry with tenants and vacant spaces. Maybe you could convince that park owner that it's a good time to start taking those nice vacations she has always dreamed of. Furnish them with some brochures of several exotic places, then offer to advance enough future rent payments so they can go. Sell them on a nice cruise, or a trip to some exotic place they've always wanted to visit. Mention how much better that would be than hanging around the park trying to collect rents and listening to tenants complain. If you spend tomorrow's earnings for today's toys pleasures, you'll always be broke.